Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Plan B Success. We have Bruce Tulgan today from Rainmaker Thinking. We'll find out what Bruce does, but he's focused on being indispensable at work. And he's also focused on young people and how they can succeed at work. He's got a book by the name Being Dispensable at Work as well. We'll find out all about him, and joining us from Connecticut is Bruce. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so Rainmaker Thinking is a research and training firm based in New Haven, Connecticut. We've been doing research on the front lines of the workplace for 27 years. And everything we do is based on in-depth interview research. So more than 500,000 people from more than 400 organizations have participated in our research over the last 27 years. And based on this ongoing research, we do our very best to identify best practices and share them with folks through our content.
And how long has Rainmaker Thinking been in existence?
Well, 27 years. Back then, I was an unhappy lawyer at number 2 Wall Street in New York City. And I wrote my first book was Managing Generation X back in the early 90s.
So you actually studied to become a lawyer but were not happy with it?
I was a lawyer for 428 days. Yeah, I went to law school, and I worked as a lawyer, and I ran around and did what the grown-ups told me. And after 428 days, I thought, I'm going to finish this book about how the grown-ups don't understand the young people.
So what do you think really piqued your interest in going after learning about people, generations, what makes them succeed at work, that kind of thing?
Well, I was a young person at work. And so, I had been in school my whole life. And like a lot of 25-year-olds coming out of law school, I went to the best job I was offered. And, pretty soon I found myself kind of bored and frustrated. And, I find the law very interesting, but what lawyers do with the law, less so. And, at that time, it was the first blush of the internet was starting to emerge, and older, more experienced people were complaining a lot about people my age. Back then I was young, and they were complaining about, Generation X. And so I started, what I thought I would do is write an article called What Your Young Employees Are Whispering About Over Lunch. And it turned into Managing Generation X. And then, that book just came out at the right time and just got a lot of attention. And then very quickly what happened was, older, more experienced people in very traditional organizations were worried about Generation X. It was the 90s. And so I had this book. So they started calling me and saying, help the grown-ups understand the young people. And I was still young. So I just have been in that business now for 27 years. So I'm not so young anymore.
So, when you look at that time versus when you look at now, we talk about millennials and all that stuff. Do you see the same issues right now? Or do you see any differences or anything that from your vantage point between then and now?
Yeah, look, some things are just about being young. They're life stage issues. Everybody goes through the natural developmental stages, right? You start out young and God willing, you get older. And, you have your first job and then, you learn a little bit and then you have your next job. And then, so some of those things, they don't change. But I think the difference with generational issues is that they come from the accidents of history that intersect with those natural developmental life stages. So, globalization and technology, institutions in a state of constant flux, individuals scrambling to take care of themselves, the information tidal wave, the pace of change and immediacy. These are long-term trends, but, there's definitely change over time. They're accidents of history, but those accidents of history are what define generational differences.
But let's talk about the current generation, right? Back to your point, technology has evolved so much, but there's no one right or wrong way, is the way I look at it. There was a time when all the youngsters were just getting into cities and living in cities and working there and all that. And I was reading an article the other day, a couple of days ago, where with all that's going on with COVID-19 and the other issues and all, apparently there's a lot of outflux of the youngsters getting into suburbs and such. And now companies are thinking about also moving out. It's this or that. There's no one right way. And there's nothing to say that maybe, I don't know, a couple of years from now, they'll all go back into the cities as well.
Yeah, look, so I am not one of these people who believes that all styles are equally valid.
Right.
But nonetheless, of course, there's lots of ways to succeed, and everybody's got to make their own choices, and there are many, 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 many valid choices. But look, COVID-19 is a great example of an accident of history that is going to shape a generation. It's affecting all of us. But if you're just starting out your career in the midst of this craziness, think about how generationally defining that is, right? And then take it another level. If you're a second wave millennial or a post millennial Generation Zer, you've grown up learning how to think, learn, and communicate while attached to a handheld supercomputer. You're probably very comfortable being atomized in your own private nest, but being interconnected to an infinite number of people and sources of information, regardless of geography. So, this accident of history is going to define all of our futures, but the younger, less experienced people more so, and maybe they're very well prepared to do everything from their private nest with a handheld supercomputer.
Right, and we see that with education too, right? When 20 plus years ago, going to college, getting a college degree was a big thing. It was a coveted thing in order to have a foolproof career, so to speak. Now, people are questioning college. Now, people are questioning whether it's important to go get a college education at all, because you could still get into a job, you could still have a decent living without really doing that. It's not about what is right, but it's about which way it's going. Yeah. So what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, look, so I think that there are some areas of expertise that require formal education and training in an institution with, what might seem like an old-fashioned pedagogy. But there's no question that so many technical skills become obsolete so quickly, that you've got to keep learning anyway. It's also the case that attending an institution of higher education can be very costly. We know it's time consuming. I'll tell you, in our client base, among the most in-demand skills are some of the building trades. It's very hard to find somebody who knows how to do electrical work, who knows how to do basic plumbing. There's a huge supply and demand imbalance when it comes to that kind of work, which you wouldn't be prepared for in most institutions of higher education. On the other hand, I don't want a surgeon who didn't go to medical school.
Right.
you know.
Yeah. So let's look at your own life, right? So when I look back 27 plus years ago, that was something that you did where you said, okay, here's a great career that I could have after I do my law school. And boom, one day you make the shift. And I'm sure you had pushback probably from, I don't know, family, friends and such. But 27 years ago, to do that without really knowing what you would do in the new career that you were carving out for yourself, how was that experience?
Well, I mean, my parents said, wait a minute, you're quitting your job at this Wall Street law firm and you're going to write a book? That sounds like a great idea, right? So, of course, it didn't sound like a good bet. And in fact, for a long time, it certainly wasn't lucrative. But, and some part of it was luck, because the book just happened to be the right thing at the right time, and it got a lot of attention, and people started calling and saying, could you come speak to our leaders, and what's your fee? And I was like, I beg your pardon? So, and then I started to think, well, gee, in fact, the very first call we got was from GE. And back then, Jack Welch was the CEO of GE. And they said, oh, yeah, we're calling from Mr. Welch's office at GE. And Mr. Welch would like you to come speak to his leaders about Generation X. And I was like, you mean Jack Welch from GE? And they said, what's your fee? And my first thought was, what's a lot? I don't know. What should it be? So, in my case, I went from something that was very secure. Look, my wife got her PhD in American history at Yale, and never, she teaches some, but she did not pursue an academic career. And both of us now, look, we're in our 50s and we think, gee, maybe she'd be a tenured professor now. I'd be a partner at some big shot law firm. And, being an entrepreneur means there's a huge amount of freedom, but it also means there's a huge amount of risk.
Absolutely.
Although, I also wonder nowadays if attaching your wagon to the star of an established organization, how much security does that really provide? Look around.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that aspect of it, right? What are some of the downturns that you went in? Like you said, it's a lot of risk. 27 years you've been doing it. I'm sure you've had some really tough times. I'm sure you've had some exhilarating moments. And, everybody talks about success. I'd like to find out more about what was that risk like? What were some of the downturns that you faced? I'm sure looking back, you don't regret anything at this point if you're still doing it. But that's the thing that people would be interested in knowing.
Well, sometimes I think if I had walked across the street from number 2 Wall Street and gone to one of the investment banks, I'd be retired now. But that probably wouldn't have been that much fun. I don't know. Of course, after 9/11, there was a huge economic slowdown. In 2008, 9, 10, things were very rough. Right now, how'd you like to be in the business of going around speaking to auditoriums packed with people all over the world? There's not a lot of that happening right now. And so what we're doing right now, look, my whole schedule was canceled. I haven't been on an airplane in 3 months. Before that, I was traveling say half the time. Mm-hmm. So this is a scary time. A lot of people who do what I do, are going to have a hard time adapting and making it through this. We have the good fortune that, we've been in business for a long time, and What we've done actually is install a production studio in our office so that we can do interviews and focus groups and other corporate research remotely from this studio. We have, and so that we can do seminars. We have a TV studio with a green screen so that I can do keynotes. Where are you in Virginia? I could do a keynote right now. I could just appear at the Lincoln Memorial, right. Because there's a green screen behind me. So, we're adapting right now. It's a scary time.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have a book coming out in July. Normally I'd be going all over creation, speaking about it. And, now we're doing it all from this studio.
Let's talk about it. So what's the book about?
Yeah, it's called The Art of Being Indispensable at Work. Mm-hmm. And it was not written for the pandemic. I finished it a couple of weeks before the pandemic. And, but in a way it might as well have been because, it's all about operating in an environment of uncertainty. It's all about operating in working relationships despite unclear lines of authority. It's all about having people come to you with asks and requests, people who are maybe not your boss, not on your team, but people up, down, sideways, diagonal, can you do this for me? Can you do it? Sometimes you don't even know who it is if you're in a large company. Who is this person emailing me, and you're not my boss. That's not my job. And likewise, you have to rely on people all over the place without being able to hold them accountable. So operating in this increasingly demanding, uncertain environment without clear lines of authority, and subject to so many factors outside your control, how do you make yourself indispensable in that environment without succumbing to overcommitment syndrome, without drowning in other people's priorities? How do you make yourself indispensable without saying yes, 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 yes to everyone and then drowning in their priorities? That was the problem I set out to solve in the book.
All right. So when you look at your book writing aspect of it, right, what is the process you follow?
Well, everything we do is based on research. So what happens is, we're always interviewing people. We're always doing focus groups, and we do a lot of consulting and training. So so even though the seminars are not focus groups, they also double as focus groups because the questions people are asking, like, well, okay, I've got this figured out with my boss, but I have all these colleagues from other teams asking me for stuff. So what happens is when a problem begins to surface and then it begins to come up over and over and over again, and then it seems to be something that a lot of people are struggling with, then I get very interested in it. And then what I do is I try to look in our interview data for solutions. And then I start to zero in on those solutions. And that's how the books crystallize. I mean, that's why I've been able to write so many books, because I didn't make this stuff up. The research does a lot of the work.
Mm-hmm. And do you use a certain publisher right now for your books?
So the one that's coming out in July is Harvard Business Review Press, and I'm really excited about that. Wiley has published my last 4 books. HarperCollins did the book before that. It's Okay to Be the Boss. Came out in 2007, and I am proud to say it still sells and sells. That's HarperCollins. But I'm delighted to be with Harvard Business School, Business Review Press. It makes me feel all grown up.
So, one of the things that I have seen, and especially with the current pandemic and what it's done, if we really look at new trends, they take time to set, where people embrace them and start doing things. Whether it's remote work, which is right now the topic of the day, right? A lot of companies, a lot of people working remotely, a lot of companies even ideating whether to have the majority of their workforce work from home versus in offices. Now, if you really look at it, the push for remote work has been going on for a couple of years now, and things like this generally take time. I would venture to say maybe next 10 years it would have taken before everybody across the globe understood the productivity or the measures or the flexibility that you get with a work-life balance, especially with a remote work set. But now
Right.
this pandemic has accelerated that. And it's done that to other areas of work as well. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. My running joke is that until a few months ago, uh, the only people who got to work at home were people who had a lonely dog at home. So the dog just needs me there. And then somehow either uh, they had enough negotiating power with their boss, or they had what I call a nice guy boss who tried to let everybody, hey, come to work whenever you feel like it, work from home, work wherever you want, or they were a superstar who had that kind of negotiating power, and did the kind of work that people thought, yeah, okay, that could be done from home. So there was a lot of randomness to it, and a lot of stumbling into it, a lot of trial and error. People would do it and it didn't work, or they do it and it worked out great. Now, I think the primary driver is going to be CEOs who are realizing, with everyone working from home, how much money they're wasting on commercial real estate and travel and entertainment budgets, and also all of the productive capacity that is wasted in commute time. Right? I mean, if you've got somebody who's commuting an hour each way to work, right now they could be working an extra hour a day and saving an extra hour a day, and everybody wins. And instead of spending top dollar for the commercial real estate where they were officing, they're working from their dining room or something.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think, and you're exactly right and I even think now, a lot of our clients, I can tell when they're talking about, okay, we're going to go back to work. How are we going to go back to work? Who's going to go back to work? Well, some people, we don't think we're doing that much from home, so we'll have them come back, but we won't tell anyone why. And the people who were doing a great job at home, they can keep working from home. So you might have the losers have to come back to the office and everyone else gets to stay at home. Whereas some organizations are going to be very strategic about planning this future. But you're right. It's a great example of an acceleration of a trend that was taking too long to materialize.
Absolutely. So your book, you said it comes out in July, and where can people find it?
Yeah, I mean, it's Harvard Business Review Press, so it should be everywhere. I would say it'll be in the airport bookstore, but I don't know if there are still airport bookstores because I haven't been in an airport for 3 months. So, of course, it's on Amazon, it's at BNN, and it's all about how to win influence by beating over commitment, getting the right things done. It's the book is all about how to build real influence by really serving others, by playing the long game, not by trying to badger people, not by trying to peddle influence, but by trying to build up your influence in the hearts and minds of other people. The thing that really blew me away when I began to see, I'm interested in what I call go-to people. The people, that's what I call the indispensables, right? The go-to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always want to go to them. What do they have in common? And what they have in common is that their influence lives in your brain. Their influence lives in your heart. That what makes them powerful is what other people think about.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. And what we learned was that it's not people who say yes, yes, yes to everyone and everything. It's the people who are really good at staying aligned with their boss, keeping their direct reports aligned, having structured communication with their colleagues, respecting other people's needs, and being really good at when to say no and how to say yes, and making a plan, and trying to specialize in the things that you have to do a lot, so you do them very well, very fast. Focused execution, not finger pointing and blaming, but continuous improvement with other people. It's all about relationships, but it's about making sure the work goes well so that the relationships go well.
Absolutely. And then under the Rainmaker Thinking umbrella, I know you talked about it a little bit, but if you were to give a menu of services that you provide, what would they be?
Well, if you go to RainmakerThinking.com, you'll see that we have a lot of free stuff there. We do research and try to make the content available. But we do a lot of seminars and keynotes, and we do custom research and consulting. We're mostly a research, training, and consulting firm. We work for organizations in every industry. But for individuals looking for help with their own careers, you'll find it hard to pay us. If you go to the website, you'll just find lots of free stuff.
Well, this has been great, Bruce. Lots of learning from you. We look forward to your book. But I'd like to ask you for one takeaway for the listeners that you'd like to leave with them. Anything that you'd like to say?
Yes. If you really want to be indispensable at work, don't try to do everything for everyone. Really, truly serve others. Be valuable to others. By having confidence in your integrity, and stay aligned through structured communication, and know when to say no and how to say yes. And I guess don't think you can outwork everybody. It's much more important to work smart and finish what you start.
And any tips for the ones looking for work at this point, with millions of people out there out of work?
Well, yeah, the first thing is take care of yourself. Learn something every day. Make your body stronger every day. Do push-ups. Take a walk. Eat your vegetables and take a walk. Learn something every day. Believe in something. If you pray, pray. If you meditate, meditate. If you read poetry. Believe in something and serve. If you are focused on what you have to offer others, then your value is going to shine through, no matter what you do.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, talking about your company, your book, your career, and all the best for the release. And we look forward to seeing the book soon.
Hey, thank you so much for including me, and thanks for making it so easy and so fun.
Thank you.
I hope you liked that episode and are enjoying all the episodes in Plan B Success podcast. I'd encourage you to go subscribe on your favorite platform, whether it's any listening platform or YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Make sure you subscribe so that you enjoy this content and extract from it what serves you best, what benefits you in your own life, personal, professional, business, whatever it might be. PlanB.live is the website where you can go in order to find any episode that you would like to listen to. 3 times a week, we release episodes, the first being an inspiring interview with someone who's done it, been there, done that, and can inspire you to go after what you want to achieve. Every Monday, that's the episode that gets released. And then, on Wednesdays and Fridays, we pick a topic and we talk about it in order to benefit you in your personal and professional life. At the same time, if you're someone who's interested in learning more about these concepts, if you're someone who's interested in podcasting as well, go check out planbsuccessschool.thinkific.com. That's where all the online courses are. You can learn and benefit from them there as well. There's a bunch of free courses. There's a bunch of paid courses. Start with the free ones. Get to learn what you aspire to learn. And if you want to delve deeper, then you can sign up for the other ones. Thank you very much.